The streets of San Francisco were quiet after an evening conference. Elon Musk, dressed casually in a black blazer and jeans, walked alone toward the parking lot. Known for his unpredictable nature, he seemed like just another attendee that night, his face partially hidden under the hood of a simple jacket. As he approached the corner of the parking lot, something caught his eye. A man was sitting on the sidewalk, holding a small cardboard sign that read, "Homeless veteran, any help appreciated." The man, probably in his 50s, was wearing a faded green military jacket of the kind that had been worn for decades. His shoes were hidden, his pants were torn, and his face, lined with years of hardship, wore a calm but distant expression. Elon quickened his pace, his curiosity piqued. He was no stranger to the sight of inequality. The streets of San Francisco told countless stories of struggle, but there was something about the man's posture that gave him pause. Instead of begging or calling out to passers-by, he sat quietly, his sign resting against his knees, his gaze steady but not pleading. Elon hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Hey," he said, his voice breaking the silence of the nearby street. "Can I sit down?" The man looked surprised. For a moment he seemed unsure of how to respond, but then he gave a small nod. "It's a free street," he said, his voice tired but not innocent. Elon sat on the sidewalk, adjusting his coat. "What's your name?" he asked. "Bernie," the man replied. "And yours?" "Elon," he said simply. There was no flicker of recognition in Bernie's expression, which Elon found odd and refreshing. For a moment, he wasn't being treated like a celebrity. Bernie held up an arm. "What brings a guy like you to the sidewalk?" Elon smiled. "Just curious, I guess. You look like you have a story." Bernie settled back a little, crossing his arms over his knees. "Isn't that what everyone has?" "What's your point?" Elon asked. "What's yours?" Bernie studied him for a moment before speaking. "Marine Corps. Served for 20 years. Afghanistan, Iraq, you name it. Came out with nothing but a pension and a few wounds you can't see. The pension didn't last. Neither did my wife." He moved to the sign next to him. "I've been here a while now." Elon sighed, letting the words calm down. "That's a tough road." Bernie shrugged. "It could have been worse. I'm still breathing." For a moment, the two men sat in silence. The sounds of the city filled the space. Elon looked at the poster again. "So, Bernie," Elon said, turning to him, "you have a calmness about you. Most people in your situation would be yelling or trying to get attention." Bernie shifted again. "It doesn't do much good. People either see you or they don't." Elon's cell phone vibrated in his pocket, but he ignored it. Instead, he shifted, resting his arms on his knees. "So, what do you need, Bernie? What would help?" Bernie hesitated, his eyes deepening a little. "Why do you care?" "Because I can," Elon said simply. Bernie stared at Elon for a moment, searching his face for some hidden reason. He'd known his fair share of people who stopped to talk, some out of pity, some to preach. But something about this man seemed different. Reluctantly, he exhaled, leaning back against the wall. "What would help?" Bernie repeated, almost as if testing the question. He ran a hand through his hair, the red stars catching the streetlights. "That's not something I've been asked in a long time." Elon waited silently, giving Bernie the space to gather his thoughts. The man shifted on the sidewalk, then looked out at the skyline. "I had a life, you know. A real life. House, wife, 2 kids. The Marine Corps kept me going. Gave me purpose. But purpose doesn't mean much when your mind won't let you rest." "PTSD?" Elon asked gently. Bernie nodded. "Yeah. It's like a shadow that won't go away. Every loud sound, every messy room. I'm back there." He pressed 2 fingers to his temple. "The doctors try to help. Medication. Therapy. But it doesn't change what you saw. What you did." Elon shifted, his arms resting on his legs. "What about your family?" Bernie's lips pressed into a thin line, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I pushed them away. I didn't mean to, but that's what happened. My wife, Janet. She held on as long as she could. But when I couldn't get a job and the bills piled up, she left. Took the kids. I don't blame her." Elon sighed a little, but said nothing. He felt Bernie needed to take the words out. After that, It was a slow descent, Bernie continued. The house was next, then the car. I tried everything. Store jobs, night shifts, whatever I could get. But people don't want to hire a guy like me. He moved, his hat broken and his pants torn. Once you're here, it's like the world decides you're invisible. Elon's gaze didn't waver. But you didn't give up. Bernie smiled. You call that not giving up? He held up his sign, the cardboard edges dirty and worn from use. This is surviving, not living. Still, Elon said, you're here. You're still trying. Bernie looked at him, his expression straining. What else is out there? The streets aren't friendly, but I've seen worse. I've seen good men I've fought with, lose their minds. Some of them didn't make it. Some ended up like me. But I'm still here. That counts for something, right? Yeah, Elon said, his voice steady. That counts for a lot. The two men sat in silence for a moment, the sound of distant traffic filling the space between them. Elon broke the silence. So if you could have anything, what would it be? Bernie pulled back, caught off guard by the direction of the question. He hesitated, his fingers fiddling with the edges of his poster. Honestly, a chance to work again, to feel useful. I have skills, mechanical skills. I used to fix cars, motorcycles, even farm equipment. If I had a small shop, tools, maybe a few customers, I could get started. Elon thought for a moment. Why didn't you try? Bernie pulled away, a small, bitter smile touching his lips. It costs money to start something like that. And out here, he gestured to his surroundings. Money is hard to come by. Elon stepped away, pulling out his phone. Okay, he said, pulling up his contacts. Bernie held up a hand. Okay, what? Let's start with housing, Elon replied, typing on the screen. I know a place that can help. It's temporary, but it's clean and safe and a good place for you to get back on your feet. Bernie pulled away, his expression of hopelessness turning to one of cautious hope. Are you serious? Elon pulled back, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. I don't say things I don't mean. Bernie stared at him, the years spent being ignored and dismissed, making it hard to believe that this moment was real. But something in Elon's tone, his calm determination, made Bernie believe it, if only a little. Okay, Bernie said, his voice barely above a whisper. We'll see where this goes. Elon's fingers moved quickly over the screen of his phone as Bernie sat silently, watching with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Moments later, Elon lifted the phone to his ear. Hi, it's Elon, he said, his tone calm but direct. I need a favor. Bernie couldn't follow the conversation, but from Elon's end, it sounded serious. Words like housing emergency and veterans support floated in the air, each one striking Bernie as a foreign concept. No one had said those words to him in years. After a few minutes, Elon stood up and walked back to Bernie. Okay, he said, tucking his phone back into his pocket. There's a place called Horizon Haven. It's a veteran shelter about 6 miles away. They'll have a bed ready for you tonight. Bernie looked at him in surprise. That easy? Elon backed away a little. It's not much, but it's a start. You'll have food, a warm place to sleep, and people who can help you figure out your next steps. Bernie's hand tightened around the sign. For a moment, his pride slipped away. Accepting help hadn't come easily to him. Why are you doing this? He asked, his voice edged with suspicion. Because I can, Elon replied simply. And because someone should. Bernie looked down, his grip on the sign relaxing. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Elon said. But I'm not done yet. Bernie's head snapped up. What do you mean? Elon picked up his phone again. This time he was scrolling through his emails. You said you wanted a shop, right? To fix things? Bernie hesitated. Yeah, but, like I said, that's a distant dream. Elon tapped the screen, then held the phone out to Bernie. On it was a list of local commercial spaces for rent. Pick one, Elon said. Bernie pulled away, staring at the screen. Are you kidding? Do I look like I'm kidding? Elon asked, a small smile on his face. Bernie pulled away, his mind racing. I can't accept something like this. You don't have to, Elon said, putting down his phone. I'll cover the rent for the first 6 months. After that, it's up to you to make it work." Bernie's breath hitched. He looked at Elon, searching for any sign of insincerity. But all he saw was quiet determination. "You would do this for me? For someone you just met?" "You're not just someone," Elon replied. "You're a Marine. You served your country. And now it's time for someone to serve you." For the first time in years, Bernie felt tears sting the corners of his eyes. He quickly wiped them away, wiping his face. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll try," Elon said. Bernie let out a shaky smile. "Okay, I'll try." Elon stepped away, holding out a hand to help Bernie up. "Good. Let's get you to Horizon Haven first. Then we'll figure the rest out." Bernie took Elon's hand, the simple gesture pulling him away from the reality of the moment. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to hope. 2 weeks later, Bernie was sitting in the middle of a modest garage in Oakland, California. The space smelled of oil and metal, and sunlight streamed in through large wood-framed windows. The walls were lined with wrenches, jacks, and an assortment of tools he hadn't touched in years. In the hallway, an old motorcycle sat in the elevator, waiting for the kind of care only Bernie could give. He ran his hand over the workbench, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief washing over him. This was his workshop, his second chance. It wasn't much yet, but it was yours. The sign out front read, "Bernie's Repairs, Bikes, Cars, and More." Elon had arranged everything from the first few months' rent to the initial inventory of tools and supplies. Now, it was up to Bernie to make it work. A knock on the open garage door pulled Bernie from his thoughts. He turned to see a middle-aged man with gray hair holding a clipboard. "Are you Bernie?" "That's me," Bernie replied, walking toward him. "My name is Mike," the man said, shaking Bernie's hand firmly. "I run a construction company down the street. Elon mentioned you could help us with our fleet." Bernie blinked. "Fleet?" Mike nodded. "Yeah, about a dozen trucks. They break down all the time, and it costs a fortune to get them fixed at the big shops. If you can handle the work, I'd rather take it to someone local." Bernie's neck tightened, not with fear but with excitement. "I can handle this," he said confidently. "Bring one in, and I'll show you what I can do." Mike smiled. "Sounds good. I'll send the first one out this afternoon." When Mike left, Bernie stepped away from the workbench, shaking his head in disbelief. Not even a full month had passed, and he already had his first client. He thought back to that night on the sidewalk, to Elon sitting next to him and asking what he needed. Back then, it had seemed like a dream. Now, it was his reality. Later that week, Bernie was adjusting a carburetor when a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Elon walked in, wearing his black t-shirt and jeans, a small smile on his face. "How's it going, Bernie?" Bernie wiped his hands on a rag, smiling. "Better than I ever expected. I already have my first big client." "Mike from the construction company?" Elon asked. "Yeah," Bernie said, laughing. "How did you know?" Elon walked away. "I may have mentioned you to him. Thought you could use a boost." Bernie laughed, shaking his head. "You're something else. You know that?" "Just making sure you have the tools to succeed," Elon said, his tone casual but sincere. He glanced around the workshop, taking in the organized chaos. "You've done a lot with the place." "It's a start," Bernie said, his voice full of pride. "But it's mine, and that's what matters." Elon nodded, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "One more thing," he said, handing it to Bernie. Bernie opened it carefully, his eyes widening as he pulled out a check. "What's this?" "Call it a safety net," Elon said. "It's enough to cover another 6 months of rent, just in case things get slow. I know starting a business isn't easy, and I don't want you to feel alone." Bernie stared at the check, his face tightening. "Elon, I don't know how to thank you." "You've already done that," Elon said simply. "You've shown me what resilience looks like. Now it's my turn to support you." Months later, Bernie's shop had become an integral part of the community. The garage was abuzz with activity, customers getting out of vehicles, construction workers chatting as Bernie tuned engines, and even local children stopping by to watch him work. The walls were now decorated with photos from Bernie's time in the Marine Corps, along with thank you notes from customers who appreciated his honesty and hard work. Word of Bernie's transformation spread quickly, and one day, a local journalist showed up to cover his story. The cameras captured the once homeless veteran, now proudly in his shop, talking about the journey that brought him to this point. He didn't shy away from discussing the dark times, his struggles with PTSD, the loss of his family, and his years spent on the streets. But he also spoke with hope. "I thought I was invisible," he told the reporter. "But that night, someone saw me, and that changed everything." The story went viral, with news stories applauding both Bernie's determination and Elon's unexpected generosity. Social media was abuzz with discussions about the importance of giving people a second chance and how an act of friendship could turn into life-changing. Elon, true to his nature, remained modest about his role. When asked about it in an interview, he simply said, "I didn't do much. Bernie already had the skills and the strength. I just gave him a platform to use them." For Bernie, the experience wasn't just about rebuilding his life. It was about regaining his sense of purpose. He began offering free repairs to veterans in need and partnered with local organizations to provide training for young people interested in mechanical work. His shop became more than a business. It became a symbol of resilience and community. One night, after closing his shop, Bernie walked to Horizon Haven, the Veterans Outreach Center that had been his first step off the streets. He walked in with a check, made out to the center, for a portion of the profits from his shop. "This place saved me," Bernie told the staff. "Now I want to make sure it keeps saving others." The staff, many of whom had seen Bernie at his worst, were moved to tears. His journey was not just a personal victory. It was proof that even the smallest glimmer of hope could catalyze transformation. Back in the workshop, Bernie sat on the same floor where he had worked for the first few months of repairs. The garage was quiet now, the tools neatly arranged and the sound of success hanging in the air. He thought of the man who had sat next to him that night, asking a simple question. "What do you need?" For Bernie, the answer had been more than a house, more than a workshop. It had been the opportunity to be seen, to be heard, and to feel valued again. Bernie's story is a powerful reminder that no one is truly invisible. Everyone has a story worth hearing, and sometimes all it takes to change a life is the willingness to listen and act. Kindness, when combined with action, can transform even the darkest circumstances into opportunities for hope and transformation. If you like this video and it added something to you, watch the next one. The next video will add more value to you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, recommend this video to a friend, and watch the next video. Your feedback is very important to us.